English prog collective Dawnwalker self-released their sixth album on the 18th of October 2024. Moving away from their progressive post-metal origins and into stripped-down prog rock, it's a remarkable evolution for the band. Songwriter and leader Mark Norgate talks to Kirk Houghton about the latest record, The Unknowing, for a track-by-track analysis. This is an SBR exclusive interview. This is Behind the Album. So, Dawnwalker, album number 6, The Unknowing, self-released on the 18th of October. You had to add that up then, didn't you?
It depends how you count it.
I could have said album number 7. You did a reimagining, didn't you, of your first album? Was that?
Yeah, we've done a few. We've done we re-released one last year, and then there's like a side project thing. But yeah, somewhere in there, six will do.
Yeah, I think using the definition that it is 6 actually, isn't it? Bandcamp and Encyclopedia Metallum actually aligned with it.
Yeah, that's the official source.
Yeah. So track number 1, Thema Mundi or Mundi. It's Latin, that isn't it?
I'd say Mundi, yeah, but I'm no expert.
Definitely one of the best songs on the album. And do you know what I love about this? In fact, just tell us, that opening motif, is that a voice that you've sampled on like a keyboard woodwind preset? How did you get that?
The vocals that open the song, no, that's me and Sophia just building up layers of chanting. Yeah, it was probably 4 or 5 layers of. It's mainly Sophia, actually, I think, with a bit of me backing her.
It's fascinating that, because I did you at least sample it to get the perfections in that, or is that actually live between the two of you?
Kind of, yeah. And there's a lot of stuff behind it. It's also like reamped, and there's sort of swirling synths and stuff behind it playing the same melody. Yeah. So yeah, it's a bit of a cosmic soup. That was like the idea this time, of more keys and more voice, and yeah, trying to make this sort of cosmic, I don't know, star-covered sort of world.
Did it start on guitar, this one? Because the guitar then takes over, doesn't it?
No, actually, one of my big sort of things I changed with the approach this time is I really tried not to write anything on guitar. I tried to really move away from it. So it was like a lot of stuff came from vocal ideas, like that simple melody. Songs would start from little ideas like that, and others were piano, and yeah, like I was basically trying to do anything but guitar, kind of.
Yeah, because you did one, as you kindly did an article for Scream Blast Repeat in advance, a Dear Diary feature. I don't think you needed to warn us. That's not the right word, that there was going to be less guitar in it. Because you're an experimental artist anyway, aren't you? So I was never going to be worried. And our readers will know that this was an easy 8 out of 10 record. Now, I want to say, in previous interviews, you don't see yourself as a singer. I think you've found your voice on this. You are a singer.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it's nice of you to say. Yeah, I mean, it's always. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like the kind of person who like picks up a guitar or sits at a piano at a party and sings a song. Like, I don't think of myself as like a singer. I'm the vocalist, and because it's mostly my words and stuff, it just doesn't really make sense for other people to sing it. Kind of like, I can't even explain to people half the time what I'm going on about. So it's kind of my cross to bear, even though it's like very difficult at times. But yeah, I try my best.
Go on. Let's go for one of the stanzas then. The sky and the earth are connected. Wisdom from above, a sign in the sky is an omen meant for the earth. I know that you studied quite a lot of spirituality and meditation. Do you want to just give us some background to this song, then?
Yeah, so the Thema Mundi it's kind of like an exercise in astrology. Astrology was one thing I was like, one of the subjects I got really like deeply interested in, especially the history of it. You know, it comes from ancient Mesopotamia and went through Greece and Egypt and stuff, and like somehow people still believe in it today, even though it was invented when people thought the earth was flat or it was the center of the universe or whatever. So these astrologers, they would kind of sit out all night marking the stars and reading all these different meanings into them, kind of thing. They would see them as, you know, if the stars were in this position, it meant the king was going to die, or if in this position there was going to be a plague of locusts or whatever. So that song and the Thema Mundi itself is like a sort of astrological exercise about like the birth of the world and the positions that the planets and the stars were in at that point. So the song itself is more about humans reading meaning into the earth and the stars being connected. That, I mean, that's basically the thesis of astrology, isn't it? That they are connected. So yeah, that was the guiding principle for it.
Did you say this first originated in ancient Mesopotamia?
I believe so. I mean, obviously the records aren't great, but there's a thing called the Diviner's Manual, which is like a stone tablet which has something like similar to the lyrics written on it. Sky and earth together connected, omen above is omen below, or something like that. So it's like this ancient artifact basically laying out the idea of astrology.
Do you know what I like in the chorus here? The use of the flute. So before you even compose this album, did you know that you wanted your friend Bella Band to be contributing flute to this record?
Yeah, she's kind of like our in-house session flautist. There's just I think we've had flute on almost every album except for House of Sand, maybe one other. There's just something about it. I mean, I love prog and I love mellotron. I like those sort of sounds. I love like a flute pad. I end up using that a lot, but you just can't beat a real flute when you want a lot more movement and a bit more humanness to it. So yeah, but I mean, Bella did a great job on this. Like almost every review or any person that's commented on it has commented on her awesome flute playing.
Yeah, definitely. It adds the timbers. If you give a song color, to me, I'm hearing green, not hearing, sorry, that sounds pretentious. I'm seeing green and yellow in this song.
Hmm.
But there is some quite, you do crank up the guitar distortion, to be fair, in the chorus.
Yeah, yeah. When we get there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, have you, with Screen Blast Repeat, because we love Ages and we really enjoyed House of Sam, we're not just going to hold you to being a progressive post-metal band, because it's clear that it's a collective, isn't it, led by you. So it's a revolving door of musicians. And you actually work, don't you, with some of them, like Dane Cross, who was actually not on this album, but he's directed your video, which we'll come to next, did the artwork, didn't they? And then
He
are
did the
you still
layout,
part of
yeah.
that band, Sacred Sun, which is his project?
I mean, I am as much as anybody is, I think. Sacred Sun it started out as a one-man black metal project and it, grew into a band, but it's very much Dane's baby. He's one of my best buddies, so I'll see him for a beer whenever we're working on anything. We'll chat like what we're working on, what ideas we've got. So he's a permanent member of the band, even if he doesn't,
Yeah.
play bass on a particular record or whatever. He's part of our world of people.
Yeah, let's go on to track number two then. So did you entrust him to be the director of the video for Capricorn, which is track number two?
Not as such. It's just we kind of make the videos ourselves. I asked Dane if he would be in it. I had this idea that he could play this sort of king-like crusading figure, and
Yeah,
Dane's a bit of a ham actually. He loves any opportunity to act. So he's a great shout for it, and we help each other out with videos and stuff. So he helped me shoot it, and yeah, he's always a collaborator.
who would you compare your voice to? I know artists don't like doing it, but there is like you sound like a man drowning in regret here, but there's great melody to the voice.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean the melodies were front and center this time, and just in general the voice was a massive concern this time. Like I said, a lot of the writing came from vocals initially. They were some of the first things I wrote, and the songs would grow out of vocal ideas. And just in the sense that we're talking about like human beliefs and words and just the voice was paramount this time. Who do I sound like? I don't know. I wouldn't like to put that onto anybody else, to be honest. But I don't know. I get
Artists
compared
don't like
to.
answering this, by the way.
No, well, it's just not something you think about, is it?
No, because you can't go
It-
into and think, oh, I want to sound like a cross between Richard Ashcroft and Toby Driver on this song. See, I've actually hinted there at two voices I hear. I mean, are you a fan of the early records from The Verve?
yeah, and Richard Ashcroft solo. Actually, I went to see him when I was a teenager. He's like even though I'm not the world's biggest fan, I always loved his voice. And there's an occasional song from The Verve or from his solo stuff where I'm like, wow, that guy can really sing. He's got an
Yeah.
interesting voice. People used to tell me I look like him as well, so maybe I'm a Richard Ashcroft stan. I didn't realize it.
You'd be fine in the north of England then, Wigan, where he's from. That's near where I'm from, actually. Yeah,
It's
you'd be,
where
you'd
my
get,
partner is from as well.
oh,
So
is it? Okay. I was there 2 weeks ago for my mum's birthday. We went shopping in Wigan with my two nieces. Anyway, sorry, getting off topic. Getting back to this song, yeah, Toby Driver. I know that you're like me. We like Maudlin of the Well and certainly Chaos,
yeah, no,
don't we? We're
I'm a
big fans.
I'm a huge fan of all of his projects. Really, I wouldn't really say that I'd sound like him. I don't think, but he's a massive influence. Absolutely.
Yeah, do you know what I think it is? I would say that you do have, how do we describe it? Emotionally, you do have a similar voice
Hmm.
where you manage to extrapolate melody from it. And you're right, I can hear this album that a lot of these arrangements start from voice. What I like about this one is, are you kind of using some neo reggae, Stuart, Andy Summers and the
Yeah,
Police type
a
chord
little
phrasing,
bit.
aren't
Yeah,
you?
yeah, yep, yes, yeah, indeed. Well, I was listening to the Police a little bit, and it's more that side of it. It was more like the kind of pop side of it. Luke, who played bass on the album, insisted on taking us out to like a reggae roots night, which is like a sound system night, which is super, super fun. So loud. The sound system was enormous. But yeah, like, I think for me, it comes more from like sort of 90s pop that I grew up on and the 80s as well, like that Police sort of watching Top of the Pops and slightly tropical infused pop music. I think I was regressing back to my childhood a little bit, indulging some of my pop influences.
Yeah, it's quite dark though, the song as well, isn't it? You know, this would be, I'll give you an example. I've been listening a lot to Head on the Door by The Cure, the
Okay.
1985 album. And that's one of many great albums in their discography. And that's like the perfect alternative pop album for me, if that's even a thing. You know, when you look
Yeah,
at the
right.
80s, there was a lot of shite in the 80s, but the good stuff's amazing. And that's one of those where there's still some dark songs on there. And it's just glorious. And you've captured that here. I'm just gonna one other thing I want to talk about before we move on. Really like the technique in the chorus where you've got these first two words staccato and then you elongate. And that's why I think you've discovered your voice on this album. I think you're
Hmm.
confident on here. Like you said, you're not going to
Yeah, thank
do an
you.
open mic night with an acoustic guitar. But
God no. God
yeah,
no.
I mean, did this come early on? Called forth on that lonely road. Was that quite early on?
The melody was, yeah, the lyrics came very late. I really agonized over the lyrics on this album. They're always trouble. They're always like the thing I struggle with the most. Well, maybe not the most, but I struggle with them a lot. Um, so the melody I had for a year before that, but called forth didn't come till very late in the pro. And then I was like, that's it. Yes. Trying to get across this idea of a sort of crusading sort of warrior that thinks he's destined for great things and finding out that he isn't. Yeah, called forth. Eventually, it came to me.
I'm going to make a prediction. First time you did it, you were unable to squeeze in the line into the unknown. Did you go too early on that the first time you did it? And you're like, oh, damn, the syllables are out of line.
No, but it's rhythmically challenging for sure,
Yeah.
especially when I play guitar at the same time. We're going to be playing that song live for the first time, like in front of people in a few weeks' time, and it's a challenging one to sing and play at the same time. Like the rhythms are crossing over each other in slightly unusual or slightly difficult ways for my brain to cope with.
So you mentioned the bass player from Pupil Slicer who won the Scream Last Repeat Album of the Year,
Mm.
2023, Luke Fabian. How long have you known him? How did he end up in the band for this record?
Well, he obviously used to play in Pupil Slicer. We played a show as Sacred Son. Pupil Slicer played with us. I think Dane found them on Bandcamp or something, and stayed in touch with Luke since then, and I just see him on Instagram and stuff, and he'd be like, you know, obviously he's a sick bass player, and everyone knows him for like screamy sort of hardcore stuff and black and death metal, but he'd post these videos where he'd just be like jamming along to a hip hop track, just like improvising over it. And I'd be like, shit, he's got some chops, this guy.
Yeah.
like, and not just even in the way that people think of like the really shreddy metal stuff. Like he's very versatile. And he just sent me a message saying, you know, he's usually busy with live touring and stuff, but if we ever want to do any studio stuff together, he'd happily jump on a track or two, kind of thing. So, yeah, just I don't know, it just worked out. I asked him, he was up for it. He loves to play and he loves to work, so he joined us for this whole album. It was good.
Yeah, it's a good lineup. I am gonna have to ask, why is my friend Matteo Bianchiotto, is that how you pronounce his name? Why is he not on the album?
Well, Matteo, like Dane, is a permanent member of Dawnwalker, so the fact that he's not on the album doesn't mean he's not in the band. Like a couple of people have gone, like, where is he? What happened? Like he'll be joining us for those shows next month. I don't know. It was just I was trying to do less guitars on this album, and we had a lot of personal stuff going on. Matteo was like moving back to Italy, and like just it just didn't work out this time, timing wise. And I'm kind of once I've got an idea in my brain, I just have to go and do it. So
Yeah.
it was just the timing this time. He'll be back for sure.
When did he move to Italy, or is he still in the process of doing that?
He's gone, yeah, and he's been there for most of this year now. So it came in the middle of that, and it was just a bit of a mad rush. Even for me, this album, I slightly pulled the trigger quicker than I would have liked to, and then it all became a big mad rush to get it done. But that's half the fun.
Yeah, definitely. Just act and ask questions later. So track number 3,
Hmm.
Novus Homo.
Hmm.
Again, I'm kind of thinking here, this is what you hoped the Verve could have achieved if they'd not sabotaged the career at the commercial and cultural peak in 1998. The difference is you are using metallic guitar techniques here. There's some like alternate palm muting which you would never get, and even in alternative rock you don't hear that. I like the articulation of the chorus as well. That's beautiful in its
Thank you.
emotive delivery. I'm guessing this was one you had the melody in your head before the words.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the case for all of them, really. The words are probably the first thing that I start for any album. I start writing down words and phrases and like just little things that might turn into lyrics, but then the last thing finished, and they're sort of the process for the lyrics goes all the way through. So yeah, the melodies always come first, and they usually exist a long time before the lyrics do.
Do you think with some of your early stuff, the more murderous aggression parts, the post-metal elements, do you think you're kind of wasting your lyrics then at times because the listener can't hear them with as much clarity?
Maybe. I mean, for me, when I just listen to, unless it's like pop music where the vocal is super upfront and loud and clean and clear, like I like to, sit with a vinyl and read the sleeve, read the lyrics as I go along. So, I mean, maybe, perhaps, but I've also like I'm not like a death metal guy. I think my screams are somewhat like you can hear what I'm saying still. I think it was just the mood that I've been in for the last year or two. Like I like all kinds of music, but just for whatever reason, the last year or two, I've just been listening to a lot of very clean and quiet music and not a lot of metal really. So it just came out this time. It's not like I'm done with metal forever. It's just that's where my head was at this time.
Yeah, it's been similar to me, even though I'm the editor of Scream Blast Repeat. I don't review as many death metal albums now. I'm going. You have phases, don't you? Like for example, the last 12 months has basically just been Depeche Mode and The Cure every day for me. Outside the one album that I'll review each day, that comes to me, and I think I've gravitated towards post metal and sludge and noise rock and things like that
Mm,
I didn't really listen to 10 years ago.
mm,
So yeah, I mean, the reason I said, do you feel like you're wasting your words? I don't think you are with post metal, for example. Sometimes it doesn't even matter what the words are; it's the emotion, isn't it, that
yeah,
comes through.
yeah.
But there is great clarity here. And that is when we look at the chorus, when your soul is tired and you feel like dying, find a host to hide in. We are older than we know. Are you saying that we are dwarfed as human beings by the galaxy and we might have these concerns about our own mortality that are absolutely irrelevant?
Perhaps. This song was really inspired by Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard
Okay.
specifically. Novus Homo is they. It's this idea you find in a lot of religions like that, where they see themselves as elevated humans, these new men, and they refer to the rest of us that aren't in their religion as Homo sap or Homo sapien, and they are these great Homo novus, these new enlightened men. So the I guess I was drawing an allusion to people that would be drawn to that and why, and finding a home for themselves. And in Scientology, you have this idea of Satans that are, sort of finding these host bodies to live in, kind of thing. So is in a realm of, yes, looking for some sort of belonging on Earth and in the universe.
So is there a veiled criticism of that mindset now? You've said that in line three of that. Find a host to hide in. Is there like a criticism that that's cowardly? Or am I looking at this from the wrong angle?
Kind of, but I probably wouldn't go that far. Like the idea would never be to like throw scorn on something or just say, "Hey, look at these guys, they're idiots" or whatever. But it's more. There was a lot of different belief systems I was looking at, and the thing that was really interesting is why people believe them, or what draws people to them. I guess this everyone wants to belong to something, and they want our lives to make sense. We don't want to wake up in the morning and think that the universe has no inherent meaning. It's all just random and cold and hostile. So yeah, there was a lot of these. I read a lot about different cult religions, sects, whatever you would call them, and yeah, it just something about that one is particularly interesting to me. I ended up going down a bit of a rabbit hole.
That's interesting. As I said, I wanted to do this interview to learn more about the songs. I know that you want to retain a certain mystique. I don't think any songwriter can really be 100% candid. You always want to keep something inside you, don't you? But yeah, that makes a lot of sense from a cerebral point of view now. So when we get to track number four, Heaven and Earth,
Mhm.
as I said to you, I've been on a bit of a Depeche Mode kick for the last 12 years, and Martin Gore does a lot more songwriting with guitar now, and it sounded like something he would write for Dave Gahan.
Oh, really?
It's like I guess this is a guitar ballad. Sophia Surianu, I know that she's of Greek heritage. What's her background? Has she appeared on other Dawnwalker albums? Forgive me if she has.
No, no, it's her first one. She plays in a band called Death Bloom that we played with in Manchester. And we just got chatting. She played me some of her music. It was really cool. Like I always like to mix things up, especially with vocalists on our records. She's got some really interesting stuff. And I didn't realize she's played in a bunch of bands as well. Like she's done all kinds of music. And her solo stuff, which hasn't isn't really out there right now, is amazing, and then people need to hear it, and it's really good. So, yeah, I asked her to join us, and it worked out really well. You never know, if you ask somebody that you've never worked with before to come on, like it could be a disaster. You don't know, but I
Yeah.
don't know. It worked out really well.
See, emotionally, I'm in two places with this song. One, my instinct is to feel a sentimental attachment to it, but there is an underlying sorrow. And normally those two things go together. Here, they don't seem to, and I mean that in a good way. But do you know that band Pure Reason Revolution?
A little bit, yeah.
It reminded me of the mood that they've created on their last two albums. They have
Hmm.
this dual vocal harmony between John Courtney and Chloe Alper. And actually, she wasn't on the last album, but yeah, it created similar emotion in me when I was listening to it. I would say that out of the eight tracks, this is the one I've had to keep coming back to try and understand it.
Okay.
Doesn't leap off the page for me,
Right.
which is a good thing because there are a lot of subtleties. I think if you put headphones on with this album, it's good for the listener. You hear something different
Mhm.
every time. When we get to track number five, absolute standout for me, Mirror Pool. This is dark. This is like Dead Can Dance.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dead Can Dance, and now that it's dark and wintry outside, I've been listening to a lot of that. And in
Yeah.
fact, Lisa Gerrard has a solo album called The Mirror Pool, which I'd forgotten until pretty late in the process, and was like, "Oh shit, oops."
Yeah, you're actually doing some belting in this, aren't you? Your vocals. I mean, you're really raising the decibels here.
Hmm. Yeah, I
How many
mean,
takes was it to get that nailed down in the studio?
well, not many, just because we didn't have that much time. Like the vocals are always the last thing done. They're always done in a bit of a rush. Like you would like to take weeks over the vocals if you could. You've usually got a day, so I'd imagine probably 2 or 3 takes. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, it's yeah. I suppose I am belting out.
It's impressive. Yeah. Do you know the string arrangements they're done on keyboard, I imagine, aren't they? Very minimalist. Da, da, da. They're
Mhm.
kind of brood, they hide in the background, which really suits it. Am I right in thinking there is no percussion on this song, is there?
Well, there's bells. There's me. I have like a handheld thing that's like keys and bits of wood. That's I'm not sure you could really call it a musical instrument. It's just some stuff that I shake in the background. So, not really like percussion, but there's definitely a lot of noises and bells and things clanging away in the background.
So did you, as soon as you knew Sophia was on board for this song, were you the one who said, can we have some Greek language singing in here?
Yeah, well, actually, the idea for that came from the first song because it is about these sort of ancient civilizations looking at the stars, wondering what. I was thinking Greek on the first track, but it just somehow just ended up not fitting in there. And then I just gave the start of the song to her and just said, "Come up with something." And she wrote this thing in Greek. And it's amazing. Like you should hear what I had demoed. It's so hilariously bad compared to what Sophia came up with, and I'm so glad that we did that because my version was rubbish. So yeah, that's all Sophia's wizardry. She wrote that.
How much pre-production had you done before you recorded this in the studio?
I mean, my own demos, I've been demoing them all throughout uh, last year. So probably a year or 18 months of demos and redoing things, and there was a couple more songs that didn't end up making it. I always end up writing probably 20 songs for an album, then trying to whittle it down to the ones that all belong together. So yeah, but then once we hit the ground running, I mean, from sending the demos to the other guys and rehearsing it and tracking it was probably about 6 weeks.
You're meticulous then in your preparation, aren't you? Because you know that you've got a finite amount of time. And you, like you said, you're probably going to have one day to do the vocals on all the songs. So have you ever done a record where you've gone in, you're like, we've got some riffs, we've got some ideas.
Oh no,
Let's see what
absolutely
happens.
no, no, no. That would be a disaster.
And yeah, how do bands do that? Why do they do it?
Well, I guess they've got time and money would be my guess. They just book out a studio for 3 months or 6 months or something, and then you've got the time and the luxury to do that. But no, we make our records very quickly compared to most people, as I'm sure most DIY bands do. But yeah, you don't have time to. I mean, if something's not working, you have to kind of think on the fly and fix it and come up with a better solution, kind of thing. But you do not have time to be writing songs in the studio, and I would crumble under the pressure if I had to do that, I'm sure.
So you went up to Scotland, didn't you, to record it? Was it the
Um,
guy from Ashenspire that you were working with?
yeah, Scott, he's the guitar player in Ashenspire. He produced their album, or at least some of it. He mixed it and he did the overdubs, like the final finishing touches, and then he mixed it. The main chunk of it was recorded down here in London at Holy Mountain. Then we did vocals in Manchester, and then yeah, finished it in Edinburgh with Scott.
Joe Clayton. Yeah, one of those bands that have
Joe.
made it, he is the post-metal guy and post-rock guy to go to. What do you think of his band, Pen?
Oh, they're a great band. I mean, I go see them all the time, but I saw them just a couple of weeks ago here in London. The second album's incredible. It's a really great piece of work. and it's been, they've had a lot of expectations on them, and a lot of people have been waiting for it for a good few years now, but it's absolutely delivered.
Yeah, do you know the only reason I pronounced that correct? I interviewed a Belgian band called Hippotractor, and they were supporting them, and
Oh, that's
they're
right. Yeah,
Flemish,
yeah.
so they speak Dutch. And because I would have said pine, or but he said it's pronounced pen. Does Joe actually? How does he pronounce it? Does he pronounce it pine or pine?
I mean, I don't think he puts on the accent.
Yeah, well, he's a man from Manchester. That'd be tragic
Yeah.
if he did.
Pine.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I love Joe. He has the most relaxed working environment of any studio that I've been in. Not that I've had any horrible experiences, but Joe creates this very creative and relaxed environment to work. It can be stressful, like especially when you're up against the clock. You're like, you got to get this done today. You're running out of time. You start discarding things. Like Joe always keeps things on the rails, so he's always somebody I like to go to, especially vocals, which are like the most. When you're stood in a vocal booth, suddenly aware of how stupid your lyrics sound as you sing them. He's a, a guy that'll keep you grounded.
yeah. I can imagine that must be nerve-wracking. Let's go on to track number six, Sword of Spirit.
Okay.
We'll start with the lyrics. One stanza that stands out for me: "Have I always been cruel? Did I lie? Who on earth would care at all if I live or die?" In whose shoes are you writing this from?
Oh, it's a difficult question. It's definitely thinking a little bit of Hamlet. It's definitely thinking a bit of a king that is unloved by his people, or anybody who's like a sort of figurehead like that, wondering if they are loved and respected, or if they are, like King Charles that nobody likes.
Yeah.
De facto sort of leader that nobody fucking wants. But I guess it's about somebody struggling with the idea of their legacy and wondering what it's all been worth, and was it all worth it? Kind of is what that song is about. And the Sword of Spirit it's a Christian concept, like an esoteric Christian concept. It's kind of like kill them with kindness. You know what I mean? It's like the Sword of Spirit is your compassion and your ability to do battle with your love and words, and so it's about somebody trying to pull it back from the brink when they've realized that it's not gone how they imagined it might.
That makes sense. Yeah. Do you know on this song, it's the only time I do hear a bit of a Radiohead vibe, circa Kid A. And I am going to say something controversial here. I revisited Kid A recently. I know it changed music and got to number one in America, and it's an unbelievable way to move away from what they were doing. But I'm going to say it. I don't think that album holds up. I actually think it's shit.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't really get it at the time. I appreciate what it's done, but go on, let's have your opinion on this, because you and I are fans of OK Computer. We grew up on that, didn't we?
Yeah, but for me, more so Kid A, because OK Computer came out, I was 12 years old, and my older brother and sister were into it, and I liked it, of course. And that was where my Radiohead fandom started. But Kid A, I was really invested in the lead up to it, and like waiting for it to be released, and like hearing a song on the radio and getting. So I can't be objective about that album at all. For me, it's like such a huge part of my like musical upbringing that it's just, yeah, it's magic to me.
Do you know, I had a similar experience with Tool. I remember buying Onoma in 1998 from Virgin Records in Bolton. No, sorry, 1999. And then we had to wait until 2001, didn't we, for Lateralis to come out.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
bought that from I don't know if you've heard of this Lancashire town called Leyland. Got it from Townsend Records there on my lunch break. I was at sixth form at the time. And I remember walking, I don't know if it was raining for that day. That might have been when the Rage Against the Machine album came out. And that day you had Tool, Lateralis, Depeche Mode, Exciter, and Megadeth. The World
Wow.
Needs a Hero, all out on that same Monday. And so yeah, I'm like you, I couldn't be objective about that album, and that gave me everything I needed, that Tour record. But yeah. Can I ask you
Kid
at this
A, I
point
still
as
love it.
well? What's your
Go on.
view on Anathema?
I love that band. We've been getting a lot more comparisons to them this time. like justifiably so, they've been a huge influence on me as well. I'm actually surprised we don't get compared to them more. We get a lot of comparisons to Opeth and Porcupine Tree and a bunch of bands that I've literally never listened to in my life, like Pineapple Thief and some other stuff. I mean, I don't even know what that stuff is. Anathema, yeah, it's a hugely influential band for me, especially like the middle period, sort of Alternative 4, Judgment,
Yeah.
Find Day to Exit. There's one more as well that I'm going to forget the name of. The earlier stuff, the Death Doom stuff, is great.
The Silent
The
Enigma, I love that album. I still play that now. I do agree with you. I do think Alternative 4, which is the one that has that hazy violet and pink cover, is that
That's
Judgment?
Judgment, yeah. That I mean, that's probably the one that I would take to a desert island. To be honest, it's
Yeah.
my favorite of those.
Yeah, because the songs where they're paying homage to their late mother, I think, on that. It's very personal, isn't it? I remember when A Fine Day to Exit came out, and I didn't really follow them since then, but I was one of those people who's like, oh, they're no longer a metal band. And I think when you get older, I realize now that they were that band for metalheads, like perhaps what the Cure are as well,
Yeah,
or Radiohead, to be fair, where you're always going to listen to that because it's dark, it's introspective, and yeah, I like all eras of that band, admittedly, yeah, and I think I did mention Anathema in my review.
yeah. I mean, it's totally. I think it's always been there, but I think it's a lot more apparent this time, especially with like the spacey keyboards and stuff. People have been comparing it more to later Anathema, which I don't know as well. To be honest, I don't know the last records from the last 10 years or whatever. For me,
I
it's
know.
that sort of late '90s, early 2000s period. That's when it really got me, and yeah, I still play
Yeah.
those records a lot.
Track number 7,
Mhm.
Cancer Rising. I was hearing Echo and the Bunnymen in
Really?
this fusion of indie rock and post punk. Really like this
Okay.
one.
Hmm.
Yeah, another song built on like divine vocal motifs
Mm.
and flute flourishings.
Yeah.
I think you've got this right in the track listing. To put it at track number 7. I think the danger would have been to have the first 3 songs and they've all got flute in them.
Yeah.
Did you know that you needed to spread that out?
Yeah. There's. I don't know how deep you want me to go into the woo woo, but
Yeah.
there's a thing in astrology which is I have this Capricorn Cancer. I don't believe in astrology, by the way. I'm very interested in it. There's a Capricorn Cancer opposition, which I have, and your Capricorn side is your sort of arrogance and your ego and your sort of hard headedness, and the Cancer is the more feminine openness kind of. So for me, side one of the record is the Capricorn side, and side two is the Cancer side. So they had to be separated like that. They had to be in the middle of each side. So yeah, there is of course you when you sequence an album, you have to do what makes sense musically, but there was also this conceptual element to it, which it had to go there.
Great vocal melody.
Oh, thank you.
Centuries gazing at the stars. I can tell that. Did that come to you in the shower? Does that come to
Wait,
songwriters?
that's
Oh,
Fall
sorry,
to
that's
Earth.
Fall to Earth. Oh, sorry, we're going on to that. Yeah. Let's go to track number 8 then. Sorry, yeah, Fall to Earth. Centuries gazing at the stars. Does that ever come to a songwriter in the shower? That cliche.
I don't think it does. I mean, it can happen anytime. I mean, but I can't even tell you when that came. Quite late, I think. Again, um, that song was quite difficult. I went through a lot of different versions. The melody changed a lot in the final phases, I think, but I don't really remember how it came about. It's tricky to sing that one as well.
Yeah, apologies to the viewers. We didn't really spend time on track 7 because I quoted lyrics from track 8, Fall to Earth. Standout track for me. What instrument is that arpeggio at the beginning? Do do do
Well,
do do do
it's
do
a
do do do.
it's a piano, but it's also backed by a sort of synthy e-piano clavier type sound, but then it's also reamped through a guitar amp, so it has a slight guitar-y sort of reverb to it. as well. So it's three things really,
Yeah,
mainly piano.
I can see that. Yeah, I was almost thinking like, is this somehow a guitar? You won't quite get that resonance, but yeah, it's beautiful. This melody. It's probably, I would say, other than track number one, the absolute standout. I think as soon as you hear it, it sparkles, doesn't it? Yeah, there's
Oh,
some
thank you.
mystique to it. It's quite mystical. Sorry.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah, it is, and you beefed up the riffs in this one, haven't you? You've actually put some palm muted metallic riffs in here as well. Was that added in at the last moment, or were they there all along?
No, I mean the song was always like that. I was in two minds about whether it fit on this album. Conceptually, it certainly does. Musically, I was kind of I was trying to avoid guitars, but I mean, it just fit in the end. Once the lyrics and the melodies and stuff came, it was like, oh yeah, it definitely belongs on this album, kind of thing. But yeah, you gotta have one rocker, haven't you? Like,
Yeah.
there's a few people going, oh, it just sounds the same all the way through with his keyboard, blah blah blah. So had to give them one rock tune, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it's good. You know, that getting back to bands that move away from the sound, I don't think this is something you forced. I always think back to 1998, the Smashing Pumpkins, and Adore got great reviews. Obviously, they've lost Jimmy Chamberlain.
I love that album.
Exactly even as a kid who loved rock music, like you were talking about Radiohead. So I'd discovered Melancholy, Infinite Sadness, and the singles like Bullet with Butterfly Wings and Zero. When that came out, I'm thinking, do you know what? This is fucking amazing. And to this day, I still put that on now and think, what an album.
Yeah, I mean they're incredible albums. I find Billy Corgan a bit hard to take nowadays, but I try not to hold it against the music. I mean, Adore especially is Melancholy and the big rock songs. That's what got me into the band. But then like the stranger, quieter side is the stuff that stays with me now. I think if I was going to throw on a Pumpkins album now, it'd probably be Adore.
Yeah, I wonder if this is your Adore.
That's not a bad shout.
It's just where
Not a
you are,
bad
isn't it?
shout.
Your mood and it's a bit more mellow, and you just want your voice to be heard on this, don't you? I can tell that there's like it's not really minimalist though, is it? The music. First listen,
No.
it's proggy still, I would say.
Yeah, there's actually a lot going on. It's just sort of buried in there a little bit, and I think with repeated listens, like those little layers and little motifs and stuff come out a bit more at first, because it's just because of the lack of guitars and there's this sort of wall of synth and reverb and stuff in the background that you have to sift through a little bit to find the stuff that's buried in there.
Yeah, and do you know the when you do the chorus, you bring that motif back in, don't you? Do 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 do. I thought that was quite brave because if
Hmm.
anything, you're in danger of that being pushed to one side, because you've got guitar distortion and loud vocals. Did
Mm.
well to retain a good calibration, of sound there without that being lost.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, well, I think that's the one thing that came of having less guitars is it leaves more space for other things. Tried to treat this album a bit more like a three-piece band that only has one guitar. Guitars have a knack of sort of hogging the whole stereo field. Like even some of our other records, like Ages, that it there is synth behind the whole thing. And yes, there's a lot of pads and stuff, but there are other synth parts in there that just get completely buried and overshadowed by layers and layers of guitar. So it is nice for a change just to put some other instruments to the front.
Yeah, let's move on to the final track then, The Law. Uh, Probably the one post-rock song on the album, I would say, quite
Hmm.
brooding, but there's like a grungy tone to it still, isn't
Hmm.
there? Yeah, when I did my review, I ended with these lyrics here for but a moment before we return to the stars. Every man and woman is a star who knows we return to nothing. This is the law of the universe. What were you reading at the time to inspire the lyrics for this?
Well, there's part of that is an Aleister Crowley quote. Every man and woman is a star. That's straight out of Crowley. I was reading Brian Cox, Science Man Brian
The
Cox.
professor, the guy from
Yeah,
Sheffield.
the guy from D Ream.
Yes, from D-Ream. Yeah.
And he was sort of saying that if there is such a thing as a law of the universe, it's that things can only exist for a short time in a certain configuration before they're, recycled, whatever. And he was also saying that every like if we do discover, you know, more distant planets, that all the same stuff is going to be there because everything that's on Earth came from space. So it's the same stuff everywhere, and we've recycled stardust. So there's a bit of, you start the album with really sort of mystical, woo-woo kind of metaphorical stuff, and then you're moving toward, it's not really hard science. There's fucking Aleister Crowley in there, for God's sake, but it's like, it's a bit more of a humanistic, a bit more of an existentialist view of the universe by the end, I think. It's a rationalization or enlightenment by the end.
How confident were you when you hit those falsetto notes? There's a few moments in there, aren't you, where you're pushing your voice, which
Yeah.
you execute well. What was that like under pressure? You're doing 9 songs in one day in the vocal booth. Did you try and get this one done first?
No, it was the last one, and again, it was you're there like at 9 o'clock, trying to get it all done. It was all fine. Like the really sort of the bit where I'm singing high but in my strong normal tone of voice is absolutely fine. But when the actual falsetto bit comes in the end, yeah, I really struggle with that. I can't remember how many takes we did, but it was many, many. And
Yeah,
it's not just like hitting the note. It's trying to get the feeling right. It's basically the last thing on the album. You want to leave on a good note.
definitely. Do you know that actually it is a guitar passage at the beginning? Do 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 do. I think this is the one song on the album you could reimagine as a post metal song. You could
Hmm.
like make that quite a chunky riff, couldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, like, it's still, if we ever were post metal, then we're still post metal, but it's a slight tweak to the formula. I don't think it's worlds apart from anything we've done before. We've just slightly adjusted the balance of things.
So we're gonna have to ask the question then: is this the final Dawnwalker album?
Yeah, I did. I had to think about this. I don't know is the question right now. I'm at that point where I'm certainly turning my mind to what the next thing could be. I mean, if this was the last one, I'd be very happy with it. It's for me, that last song on there is a very nice way to end things. And I think the first thing that I ever did, this album 13, this album has quite a lot of callbacks to that, and it feels in a weird way like we've come full circle to that. So if there was never anything else, I'd be okay with it. I do have other ideas and stuff, but I need to, go sit in a cave for a month and think about what the stars suggest for the direction for it next.
So do you know it's a collective and the same? I did notice on Bandcamp the people you've thanked are all they've all been big contributors to the band. Some of them will still be playing with you live. It certainly feels like you're bowing out. And I said, didn't I, in the last line of my review, let's hope this is not the last record. It doesn't sound like this is exhaustion, is it?
Oh
You just want
no,
to
no, no,
explore
no.
something new.
No, it's definitely not that. I've got plenty more ideas. I've got so many albums that I've abandoned and hundreds of songs that just don't have homes yet. I mean, we could easily make another one. I guess the fear is repeating yourself kind of thing. I don't really want to make the same album again that we've already made. Always want to find a new, interesting direction for it that adds something to like the roster. You don't just want another one of this thing. And some of the ideas that I'm really into right now, I wonder if they might be a bridge too far to still call it Dawnwalker. If I did something that was like really minimal or really ambient or something, maybe I would give it a different name. But I don't know. It's all up for grabs right now. I need to do some deep thinking on that one and try and work out what the next thing is.
Will you answer the call from Dan Cross when he writes the next Sacred Sun album?
Absolutely, I will. Like we're eternal collaborators, I think. But I mean, am I allowed to say this? I think I'm allowed to say this. I think that his next one is going to be a return to the one man black metal mold of man doing it by himself. So Don't know. Maybe I'll play on another Sacred Sun album couple down the line, but I think next time you'll be getting a one man effort.
So you might be playing, if he does it live, you'll be helping him with that. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but we're all either in our 40s or getting there now, so it's harder for us all to get out and play shows and live that kind of lifestyle nowadays. So I don't know. I hope Sacred Sun comes back as a live band. We haven't played for a good while now, but don't know. That's up to Dane. He works in mysterious ways, does Dane. So you'll know when I know.
What about Royston O'Toole? She's married to Matteo, isn't she? She moved to Italy with him then.
That's right. Yeah, she sang on House of Sound with us. She's brilliant,
Yeah.
and she again, she's somebody that will play stuff to it and get her thoughts on it. Her vocals on that album are amazing, but I kind of think that the sort of character that she plays on that album is trapped in that ghost story. So
Oh, right. I see.
she sort of fulfills a very specific role on that album. In my mind, I think she's trapped in that house, unfortunately for her. Sorry, Roshi.
Yeah. Can you just tell us a bit more about the drummer as well, Chris Allen? I'm not familiar with his work. Which other bands has he been involved in?
Well, he's a session guy now, but he's been with us for a few years and he's become, a regular part of the band. He was in a band called Malefice, who were quite a big metalcore band, played Download and stuff like that. That was his big
yeah, I
thing.
remember that name. Yeah.
Before he transitioned into more session work, and he's like big, and he's not so much into his metal nowadays. He's more of like a classic rock kind of guy. He plays with Marco Mendoza, who played with Thin Lizzy, I want to say, and some big classic rock bands. That's like his day job right now. But Chris is just a really adaptable, versatile drummer and just a nice guy to have around.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining us on the channel. We've gone through all 9 songs. I'm just going to remind our viewers for the Behind the Album series. The record's called The Unknowing. I think we are going to agree this is album number 6 in the discography.
Yeah, fine. I'll agree to it.
And it was self-released on the 18th of October. One final question. Would there be any benefits to Dawnwalker or ever sign into a record label? I know you're a DIY collective. Have you ever thought about going down that route?
Absolutely. If the offer was right and it was like a label that we all were interested and respected, then we'd do it in a heartbeat. Absolutely. It would certainly help us reach a bigger audience, which is what you want for your music, is to get it out there to people. To this point, there's never been anything that felt serious enough to really consider doing it, but absolutely I would do it. I mean, I love doing it DIY, but to have that distribution and just to really get it out there in front of people, it's a very oversaturated world. There's a lot of guys, a lot of bands, a lot of people trying to do it, so it's tough to be heard. So absolutely, yeah, I'd definitely consider it. If it was a serious offer, I would consider it, absolutely.
I always see Dawnwalker as well as bands that you log into Bandcamp and expect to see you on there. Have you ever had a feature on Bandcamp?
Yeah, we did. On House of Sound, we featured on the front page, and they included us in their sort of metal roundup, which, that was incredible. Like front page of Bandcamp, our traffic spiked hugely that day. So when you get something like that, it makes all the difference to a DIY band. It's just huge when stuff like that happens.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And you get the illustration. So would it have been a picture of you and the band, or was it just you?
No, it was just the House of Sand cover, I think, as part of like their roundup of, I can't remember, post metal or whatever it was.
Well, that's one of the highest accolades, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, for me, getting in Prog Mag was like a pretty big one as well.
Yeah.
That's something like you can actually go buy it in a shop, which is pretty rare nowadays.
Yeah. Did you encounter any delays with the pressing of the vinyl for this album?
Oh yeah, always
So they
delays.
tell you it's going to be 6 months and it ends up being 9. Is that still happening?
In 2024, you should just assume that your vinyl is going to be late. Just assume that it'll take 3 extra months or something, or worse. It just depends. It's a really niche thing, and there's only a few pressing plants left that are doing it. And if Warner Brothers or something comes along and decides they want to print 12,000 variants of a Taylor Swift album, then everybody else has to wait until they're done. So you just sit and you wait and you try and be patient.
So basically, you're thinking, oh, I hope there's not an Adele or Taylor Swift album that's due to be out because everyone's orders are going to be put back.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the channel. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I said, I'm a big fan ever since I heard Ages, the album that came out at the tail end of 2020. And the good thing is there's still 4 more albums for me to go back and discover. So I hope it's not the last record. Any final thoughts you want to say to the Dawnwalker fans before we wrap up?
No, I thank you for having us on. Thank you for like giving the album consideration. This one in particular, I think, is like, now that people have had a chance to live with it, I think it's really been growing on people, and they've tried to sort of see what we've tried to do with it, which is really gratifying. So, to anyone that's given it your time and attention, we appreciate you.
Superb. Thank you very much.